I hardly use Snapchat. I find it to be an immature form of communication. I only have one, so I can receive snaps from friends and occasionally send people snaps while I'm on vacation somewhere or doing something fun. That being said, when this girl, Kate, who I hadn't heard from in months and who I was kind of into, randomly snapped me one night, my face lit up a bit. She snapped me a picture in a dark room, presumably her bedroom, saying, "What are you doing?" I replied with an awkward selfie saying, "Watching Friends," made more awkward with the obnoxiously bright flash from my phone. Another reason I hate Snapchat is because I look terrible in selfies. Expecting her to run away after my selfie, she actually snapped back. I could barely make out part of her face. It was 90% black wherever she was, with a hint of red glow. She said in the snap to come to her place. I was done with the stupid selfies, so I just messaged her back asking where. She sent an address that was 10 minutes away. I was bored, so why not? I got in my Chevy and started driving towards the address. It wasn't that far. I was there quicker than expected, but I'm also a speedy driver. The address was of a house at the edge of the same town I live in. Since I have her number, I just texted her. But with my car idling and her not answering right away, I decided to just call her. The call was answered, but she didn't say anything on the other end. In fact, all I heard was garbled background noise, likely because the phone was answered by accident. I said, "Hello," a few times, hoping maybe she'd hear me in her back pocket or wherever her phone might have been. I listened for a little while and eventually started hearing a man's voice in the background. I screamed, "Hello," 2 more times into the phone, and then I distinctly heard a girl scream, "Help me," before the call was hung up. I didn't know what to make of all that. I texted her one more time, "What's going on?" Minutes later, I got a text back saying, "Come in, I just opened the front door." I looked at the house and sure enough, the front door was left open. At the same time, I got another snap from Kate. I opened it immediately. It was a picture of her legs in a dark room. She was wearing ripped jeans, and it looked like she was sitting on the floor. Something wasn't right here. I wasn't going in that house. I called 911. In the meantime, while waiting for the cops, I texted back the number saying, "1 second, I'm on a phone call, then I'll come right in." But there was no answer. In fact, the next time I looked at the front door of the house, it was closed now. I was worried that what I was imagining was coming true. The cop car eventually pulled up behind my car and I pointed them at the house. Another cop car pulled up quickly across the street and 2 more cops got out. A total of 4 cops were knocking at the front door. A man opened the door and they identified that they received a report of a kidnapping in the house. One of the police officers actually let himself into the house past the man. The other 2 followed, while one stood with me by the front porch. Not even 30 seconds later, one of the cops yelled at the other 2 to get him in cuffs, and then a girl's cries for help soon became apparent from the basement. I was in absolute shock when the girl I recognized as Kate was being escorted out of the house in tears. She was a wreck. She looked like she had just experienced a life-changing trauma. I can't even imagine. This wasn't even her house. This was apparently the man's house. But the girl's aunt didn't live too far, so she was brought there. Obviously, the man was brought to jail, and I'm sure he's now in prison. That Kate girl really didn't seem to want to talk to me too much beyond thanking me for saving her life a bunch of times. I'm not mad about it, though. I understand experiencing whatever she went through in that basement is probably something no one wants to think about. This started yesterday when my cousin and I got home from a party around 10 p.m. We were sitting in my living room for a while, just watching Netflix, and nothing seemed weird during that time. At one point, I drunkenly said to my cousin, "Look behind you," because we always mess with each other like that, except she was pretty sure she saw something move in the window behind her. Not thinking anything of it, I just figured she was trying to scare me back, and I pretty much forgot about it. This was until out of nowhere a while later. My dog jumped up and ran to the front door, barking aggressively. We kept yelling at her to stop, but she wouldn't leave it alone for at least another 3 minutes. I thought maybe she could have heard a noise from the TV or something that scared her. But the movie we were watching had ended like 30 minutes ago, and we were both just sitting in silence on our phones. After this happened, I was kind of nervous and pretty confused, but my dog had done this a few times before, so once again I tried to just ignore it and not really think too much about it. It was around 1 a.m. when my cousin and I decided to go upstairs and start getting ready to go to sleep. I was lying down on my phone checking Snapchat when I decided to open Snap Maps. Then I saw it. Someone was at my house with me. I started thinking of all the possibilities of who would be that close to me. The guy's name was Sebastian. At this point, I was really confused and started to get worried because I don't even know a Sebastian. I went back downstairs to check and make sure all the doors were locked. In my house, we have an alarm system where every time you open a door, it will chime to let you know. For some reason, it was unplugged, meaning if any doors were being opened, whether it be the shed door, backyard gate, or just any door leading to my house, no one in our house would be notified. I asked my cousin if she unplugged it and she said she didn't even know that we had it. I was genuinely worried now because when I checked the Snap Map, it said he was last seen an hour ago. An hour ago was when my dog started viciously barking at the front door for no reason. The more I thought about everything, the more it seemed to be connected, but there was really nothing I could do, as I had already checked downstairs and locked all of the doors. I actually do have multiple cameras around my house, so I decided I would just check them in the morning because I needed to get the password from my mother. So, skip to the next day. It's currently the next afternoon, and I'm still waiting to check the cameras, but nothing weird has happened since last night. Although when I checked Snap Maps, it said he was last seen 11 minutes ago and still around my house. I did, however, send him a chat that said, "Who are you?" And he just replied back with, "Who are you?" So I didn't answer. His Snapchat score is 28,000, so it isn't likely this is a fake account. I won't know anything else until I check the cameras, and I'm not really sure what to do because I don't have proof of anything yet that I could bring to the cops. It's making me a bit perturbed while being at my house now. Okay, so today has literally been crazy. My cousin and I have both been pretty freaked out. I'll start with last night. My cousin and I had been hearing strange things all night again. We finally got the password to check the cameras, and we checked the footage this morning from last night around 2 a.m. The figure was mostly all black, and we could hardly make anything out. We did call the police, and they came this morning and checked the footage. They also looked around our house just to make sure nobody was still lurking around. They said they would patrol around our neighborhood when it got dark for the next few nights too. They made a report on the man trespassing, and we gave them as much information as we could so they can hopefully find him. We both feel a little bit better, but it's really unnerving to know somebody actually was lurking around our house the past few nights. My fiance and I bought a house about 6 months ago that sits on about 15 acres. We have a decent amount of property. Most of it is wooded, but we plan to do something with it one day. One day when my fiance Tony was out running errands, I decided to take the dirt bike out back through the trails and do some exploring. After all, we'd been living there for half a year at this point, and we had probably only seen maybe half of our property. I spent about an hour just roaming around through the trails having fun on my bike, until I saw a person in the distance. I was 100% sure that I was still on my property, so I made my way to the man. He started waving at me as I got closer, and I waved back. "Hey Emily, long time no see," he said. "I'm sorry," I said in the most concerned way possible. "Who are you?" "It's me, Dave. Remember biology class in high school? We used to talk." "Oh yeah, hey. So, what are you doing here on my property?" I asked. "Oh, I'm sorry to intrude," he said. "I didn't know I had a new neighbor. I live just behind you on Oak Road," which was the road directly behind my house that was parallel to the road I lived off of. "I was just walking around and must have lost track of time and went too far. Sorry to bother." "It's okay, no worries," I told him. Something didn't feel right about the way he was acting, though. It felt like he was hiding something. Just the tone of his voice and his delayed responses seemed very sketchy. "Well, I better take off so I can get back home," I said. "Wait," he said. "Maybe we should catch up a bit. It's been so long since we've seen each other." He started walking even closer to me, but I told him that I really had to get going and that it wasn't a good time. I took off and headed back to my house. I felt really creeped out by the whole situation and called my fiancé when I got home to tell him everything that happened. Later that night, When Tony and I were watching TV like we usually did before bed every night, we were discussing the situation that happened with Dave earlier in the day. Tony reassured me that I was overthinking and being paranoid, and that he was sure it was nothing to be worried about. If we ever ran into him again, he would tell him to heck off. It was absolutely insanely ironic because just as Tony finished that sentence, there was a light knocking sound on our bedroom window, which spooked both of us. We both got up to see what was going on. Tony opened the blinds and then opened the window, and there he was. Dave was standing right there, looking directly at us with what looked like a combat knife of some sort. Tony closed the window and locked it immediately, then told me to lock myself in the bathroom. He grabbed his hunting rifle and went on a search for Dave. He found him in our backyard, sprinting towards the trails, and that's when Tony let off a couple of gunshots in Dave's direction, purposely missing him. But it was to send him a message that if he were to ever come back, he would shoot him where he stood. Dave took off, and we haven't seen him since. We debated calling the police, but we didn't. We didn't want to deal with it because we were worried that we would get into some trouble if we told the police that Tony shot at him, even though it was kind of in self-defense. But since Dave didn't actually physically attack us and didn't break in, we were worried that Tony could get charged with attempted murder or something. We didn't want to risk it, so we didn't. Tony got me my own rifle and taught me how to use it. I've been practicing my aim with it a few times a week with some targets out back in case it ever came down to a situation where I needed to use it. I'd be lethal with it. We found out that Dave didn't even live near us, and that he was stalking me on Snapchat through the Snapchat map.